Zoom meetings are great, but if you're lucky, you haven't experienced the problem with what's called Zoom bombing. Zoom bombing is basically when a jerk interrupts your meeting by displaying something inappropriate or off topic. In this video, I'm going to go over how to secure your Zoom meeting so that you don't have any of those types of problems. Let's get started. As you can see, there are a lot of different security options for securing your Zoom meeting. This doesn't mean you have to do all of them. You can sort of pick and choose and figure out which ones are most appropriate for your meeting to protect it. The first and one of the most obvious options is to have a Zoom meeting password. So every time you create a Zoom meeting, it creates a Zoom meeting ID and it gives you the option to use a password. Now by default, it's going to generate it for you and it's usually numbers. You can actually use a word as well. So it doesn't have to be super complicated, but the idea is just to keep out some of the people that are randomly joining meetings. So here's where you want to click the option to require a password. It generated the numbers automatically, but you can also put something in like Earth. Another way to hinder people trying to disrupt your meetings is creating a waiting room. Basically what that does is before somebody can join a meeting, they go into a waiting room and it will notify you and you can decide whether or not you want to accept them into your meeting. So waiting rooms is down here in advanced options and it's just click enable waiting room and that's all there is to it to enable that. Now, this is one of those options where I was saying it may not be appropriate for everyone. If you have like just a small handful of people and they are all sharing a private link, then you can just sort of like let people jump in and it's not too big of a deal. It also can be a pain if you're presenting and you have to stop your presentation to allow someone to jump into the meeting. As I mentioned before, Zoom will create a meeting ID. A lot of times people will use their personal ID to start a new meeting. You definitely don't want to do that. And the reason is that your personal ID doesn't change. So if you give that out for one meeting, it means that whoever has that personal ID can join any other meeting that you start with that same ID. So always generate a unique meeting ID for your meetings. Now, as I mentioned, you have to be very careful about sharing your personal meeting ID. And as you can see, mine is up here on the screen. And as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to click on edit and I'm going to change that. So if you ever do share your personal meeting ID, after you do that, you need to go back and change it. And that's under your Zoom account, under your profile, personal meeting ID. So if you ever get that out there, again, what you want to do is make sure you change that as soon as you can. So as soon as I'm done with this video, I'm changing mine. Of course, one of the big problems is that people tend to share these Zoom meetings out on Facebook and other public places. I know I've done that and I've decided that I'm going to hold off on doing that anymore. But basically, there are a lot of people out there that are scanning and looking for open Zoom meetings, and the way they do it is they search the internet, find the meeting IDs, and they just jump on these calls all the time. So don't publish it on the internet. If you have to, publish it, but don't share the password or share the password in a private way, or have people register and they get it via email or some other fashion. If you're worried about people sharing inappropriate videos or something like that, you can disable everybody's ability to share their own screen. So that prevents them from like loading up a YouTube video, hitting play, and then sharing that to all of your participants of your call. So you can limit who can share their screen by clicking on the up arrow next to share screen, clicking on advanced sharing options. And probably the best option that's most secure is to say only host. Another great way for very secure meetings, say if you have a meeting with 4 people, once those 4 people jump on, you can lock the meeting so it prevents anybody else from jumping in and participating that aren't supposed to. If you go down here and click more, you can say mute participants on entry, but you can also remove the ability for participants to unmute themselves. And here's the option to lock meeting. Another random tidbit, be aware of your screenshots. As the coronavirus stuff was taking off, people were sharing screenshots of all their great team meetings and stuff like that. And the UK government actually shared a screenshot on Twitter that included the meeting ID of their cabinet. Another way to lock down your meetings, you can also require everyone that's joining to be registered on Zoom. Here's one of the options I talked about. Only authenticated users can join meetings. And of course, if you turn that on, that means you can't have any guest log in. It requires people to create a Zoom meeting. So that may be one of the options that you want on, or it may be too much of a hindrance for your users, so you may want to leave that off. This prevents someone from joining anonymously and disrupting your meeting without having any accountability. Of course, even with all of this, there may be people that jump in and they are doing things that you don't like. You can't actually remove participants, turn off their mic, turn off their camera, or just kick them out. And if you kick them out, you can actually ban them from rejoining. So that's another good feature of Zoom. So if you go to Manage Participants, you can see where you can stop video, remove. So that's it. As you can see, there's a lot of different options for securing your meeting. Most of them are not necessary for every single meeting that you do, but it gives you a lot of options to lock things down if you do run into problems with people acting like jerks on your Zoom meetings. Fingers crossed you don't ever have to worry about these, but it's better to take precautions rather than to wait till it's too late. Hopefully you found this useful. If so, please subscribe, give the video a like, share it with your friends. And if you have ideas for other videos that you want me to do, let me know in the comments or shoot me a message. I'm trying to make a lot more of these to help people out as they're teleworking and just using their computers more. And if there's something that you want to see, let me know. Until next time, stay safe and happy computing.